transfer to the university and get the jobs that they so need to have. So as you see from what the President has already said, investing in community colleges and in general in all of education across the board is among the highest priorities of the Obama administration. And it's a very simple reason. Education is the gateway to that prosperity that I talked about, to our economic and social future as a nation. And the President says we must invest in education to move the country forward, and not just for the foreseeable future. So we have a President who's set a 10-year goal, a 2020 goal that I'll talk about in a minute, and we have a President that is thinking about generations to come. And I know all of you trustees, those of you who are building out your campus, making repairs that haven't been made for 30 years, putting in new main water lines, getting your faculty to give the students the best curriculum that they can come up with, working with business and so on, you know that you are preparing the way for generations to come. And that's really difficult when right now we're in the middle of sort of one of the worst economic times we've had. I was trying to think back over my 40 years. I think, when Prop 13 passed in 1978, it was a really pretty bad time in California and for public services and public higher education. So, we forget pretty quickly and we think today is the worst it's ever been. It is really bad today. But only 3 months ago, I was back in California as chancellor of Foothill-De Anza and working with our governing board and the league and ACCT to figure out how we were going to get through one of the worst budget crises in my 40-year history. I think I've been through, this is the 6th. And I knew it would be really tough. I knew that our colleges, and our college in particular, would likely be 10% less than we were today, even with enrollments booming, even with the demand that all of you are facing across the country. The revenues just weren't simply there at my place. And I know, like all of you, we were starting to prepare for better times ahead while really going into survival mode and just putting those survival strategies in place to get through this really, really bad time and looking ahead to better times. And a new job really never crossed my mind until I actually met Secretary Duncan back in February. And I told him very directly, as I usually do, what we were doing in California, how bad it was, what steps we were taking to survive, to just kind of piecemeal the education system together until we could weather this storm, as your program says, the turbulent time right now, and the urgency to do so. We obviously immediately shared the same values and a common vision that starts with early learning, and I'll talk about that in a minute, 0 to 5, goes on to K through 12, and then begins higher education for our students in a well-articulated, seamless system of lifelong learning to serve Americans in the 21st century. So that whole system, starting with 0 and continuing through a lifetime, is something that the President has supported, something that Arne Duncan knows very well, and something that really is part of our agenda. So we don't look at just one piece. We're really trying to look at the entire trajectory of a student's life and how education needs to be structured and supported throughout that lifelong learning. We talk specifically about 3 pillars of education. Access, which you all know well, and that won't be, we will not have a speech today about access. That's what we've built our community colleges on. Quality, we have a lot to do there with outcomes and better efficiencies and understanding, where is the best curriculum and how can we really support student achievement in more directed ways. And achievement as the 3rd pillar. So access, quality, and achievement. And we talked about the increasing costs of education, how college costs are going through the roof, and the federal student aid reforms that we had to put in place as quickly as possible because there are too many and still too many underserved students and underserved communities who are losing out. And I think no one knows better than you, better than this audience, what I'm talking about, with too many families foregoing college because they couldn't, or they thought they couldn't cover the cost. So Secretary Duncan called me a few days later and invited me to come to Washington and join the administration, and I didn't hesitate for a second. I said yes immediately. And it was the call to serve that I really couldn't resist. And like you have had that calling. You're in this room because of that calling, because of the students, and because of how important it is that community colleges really are the door through which those students can live the quality of life that we were fortunate to live. So I've been in Washington for 3 months, as I said, and even though I pinch myself quite often saying, you really did this, every day I go home at night and I ask myself the same question that I've asked myself for 40 years. What did I do to make a significant difference in the lives of students? And that's what I ask every night. What did I do today that made a difference for these students? It was the Foothill-De Anza students for 16 years. It was the San Jose City College students for many years before that. It was high school students many years before that. So now it's everyone, and people have asked me, what's the difference between this job and the job you had before? And I said, you just add 3 zeros to everything and it works just fine. But it really is